Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's just 10 o'clock. We're going to start our webinar. My name is Emmanuel van Houdenhoven. I am the Sales and Recruitment Manager at Untouchables, and I am welcoming today our expert for our expert talk number 7, Alicia Kreger. And before I introduce her a little bit more in details to you this morning, I wanted to do a quick introduction to our theme, which is a theme very dear to my heart. Actually, last weekend, I came across an article in The Economist about managers who currently need to be less like Henry Ford and more like Sigmund Freud in order to keep everyone within their teams of introverts and extroverts happy. And they went on comparing modern leaders to sport coaches who continuously need to tend to each employee and motivate each employee individually in order to bridge the gap between their introverts and extroverts in the piece that was written. And I thought this is exactly what Alicia is helping companies and multicultural teams to do, finding some common ground to bring everyone together, taking into account and sometimes even possibly using the cultural differences to build stronger teams. And to be able to do so in the distance economy and to maintain strong professional ties despite the distances, also to support employee and grow and nurture relationships before in person and now on a remote basis. It requires enhanced problem-solving skills as well as creativity and innovation. But above all, it requires advanced communications and interpersonal skills, including empathy. And ultimately, we noticed that the leadership skills our clients are also seeking today in COVID times and soon, hopefully post-COVID world, are important skills to operate in both virtual and multicultural environments. And that is the seemingly natural ability to detect when something is misinterpreted by different cultural members within the same team. This is, by the way, what is called cultural intelligence. And at the same time, to sense the potential hurt feelings of other members of that same team. And this is the emotional intelligence. The culturally based misunderstandings in multicultural teams are practically inevitable. Cultural differences lead to different communicative norms. And for example, critical feedbacks, and those two examples will probably speak to all of you since we are all living in the Netherlands. For example, critical feedback can be seen as an opportunity to develop and improve for some, while it may be seen as an invitation to fight for others. Similarly, direct communication can be seen as an efficient way of expressing someone's thoughts, while for some other members in the same team, it may be considered completely impolite. And of course, on top of everything else, going virtual adds further complications because virtual interactions remove useful non-verbal cues which help ease the frictions. And so today, this morning, to avoid the risk of cultural discourse within your multicultural teams and to help you build what actually the recent happiness report talked about as the trust, support, and inclusivity vectors of multicultural teams. I am delighted to introduce Alicia Kreger, our expert today. She's an intercultural trainer and coach. Alicia was also born in France, so you have two French ladies for you today as well. Originally from Paris, where she grew up. She has a background in communications with a master from Sorbonne University, and she's also Dale Carnegie certified from a time in the US. For more than 10 years, she developed intercultural knowledge, working for several international companies, first in France, then in the US, and ultimately in the Netherlands, where she arrived in 2002. She's now based in Amsterdam. And over the years and her missions, of course, she has implemented multiple cross-cultural solutions at large companies. And she will share today with us some of the steps that you can use for your own team in order to optimize mutual understanding and collaboration. And of course, for, again, your international team. So thank you, Alicia, and enjoy the webinar. Just one little thing before we go to Alicia. We have a lot to talk about, and this is a very dense topic, of course, to treat within the hour. So don't hesitate to share in the chat your questions, and we'll go over them at the end of this hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for this great introduction. And thank you all for being here this morning, because I know you have many meetings all day long. So great that you make some time to attend this webinar. It's a bit of an unusual exercise for me, because I have usually a very interactive approach in my trainings. But today, given the time and the topic, we have to be more sending than usually. But still have tried to integrate some interactivity. So be ready to use your chat and to participate into the poll, to give a bit your perspective to the rest of the group. So today we'll be talking about successfully managing social distance in our global team. And as a matter of fact, I have a first question for you. So please, in the chat, could you tell us what are the characteristics of your team? So is it remote, your primary team, right? So is it remote, is it multicultural, or is it geographically dispersed, or maybe several factors? If you could just tell us so that you have a little bit of an idea in the chat box, please. I see that Miriam is very quick, A, B, and C. Thank you, and Marianne as well. Great. Karina, all three. Yeah. All right. So I see answers coming in, and what I see here is that we have many teams that are actually combining one or two or even three factors. And why am I asking you this question actually is that because of COVID and remote working, we have moved almost all of us, not all of us, but many of us without knowing it, into global teams. Because what are global teams? They are basically teams where we have two or more national culture or cultural backgrounds, and where we are primarily working virtually. So without realizing it, we are actually more or less all working in global teams at the moment, or at least all of us, you in this webinar. And why is it important? It's because the framework that we're going to use this morning, the split framework, which was developed by Tsedal Neeley, who is an associate professor at the Harvard Business School, was originally developed for global teams. So it's applying to your primary team. I think I'm checking the mailbox, the chat box again. I think almost all of us now. So what we're going to do this morning, quickly, three objectives. The first objective is actually to understand what could be the factor that alter effective cooperation in our teams using this split framework. Importantly, looking at strategies, because it's good to look at the issues, but of course to have some ideas to how to solve the issues. And the last step will be at the end of this webinar to take a personal commitment to see how we can enhance our virtual cooperation in our teams. So quickly, and this is going to be a poll for all of us. If you look at your team, if you had to score the virtual cooperation in your team on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is of course a very poor cooperation and 10 a great cooperation, very effective, how would you score your team? And in order to do that, I'm going to share with you a quick poll. So please, I hope you can see it now. Share your score in the poll so that we can have a little bit of an idea. I see the answer coming in quickly. That is great. Thank you for that. All right. Let's give you a little bit more time to make sure that everyone can participate. Right. I see. I'm going to end the vote now. Hopefully you can see the results. Yes, I'm going to share with you now. So hopefully you can see the results. So we have quite a large part of you who said 7 and a little bit less 5 and 6 and 30% for 8. So small part is struggling a little bit, I see, and quite large part is doing quite well with 7, and a small part or a bit small part is doing very well with 8. So I see that generally there is room for improvements. There is always room for improvements, and hopefully this framework, the split framework, is going to help us to do just that. So let me stop sharing, and thank you for participating. Let's ask ourselves for a minute. So no need to answer in the chat box, but just for yourself, reflect just a minute and ask yourself, how come? Because definitely this is what we have seen with the home working, that some global teams thrive. I mean, the transition has been smooth and they are doing really well, and some teams are really struggling. So how come, basically? What could be the reason for that? So no need to answer, just try to think a little bit for yourself. What could be, you think, the explanations? Right? And probably you have many answers in your heads, but the fact is that the research that has been conducted by Tsedal Neeley, extensive research by many companies working global team, is that there is one key factor which is actually responsible for the poor or the very effective cooperation within global team. And this key factor is what is called the social distance. So not social distancing, and that's something different, it's social distance. So when the social distance is high, the team is going to perform poorly. And when the social distance is small, the team is going to perform well. And what is the social distance? Basically, it's the degree of emotional connection among team members. And it works reversely. So if the degree of emotional connection is high, then the team is performing well. And when it's low, the team is not performing well. So basically what we have to do as leaders is to make sure that this emotional connection in our team is strong, right? So how do we do that? And the good news is that this split framework is giving us the answer, that we have to play on 5 different factors, or 5 different areas if you prefer. So let's take a look at what are those 5 different areas. And very simply, they are the 5 letters of the split framework: the structure, the process, the language, the identity, and the technology. And what we're going to do now is actually go through every one of those 5 areas, look at how we can play on it, and how we can actually make sure that the emotional connection in our team is getting stronger. So the very first one, structure, which is also could be defined as the perception of power. To make this very simple, we have a little map here of the world, and we have a situation. Imagine an international company with virtual teams located in different locations. Look at the little text here. We have 4 different guys located in different countries, and ask yourself, what is the issue here, or what are the issues? We have Sophie in France, the hub, taking, this is where everything is happening. They have 200 people, great. Then we have Ravi in India. I'm going clockwise. Ravi in India, I mean, they have a great market, but unfortunately, they don't feel like, they can't really contribute in making decisions, though they have, 30 people. We have Australia, Susan, only 5 people, and they are working really hard, but the contribution doesn't seem like it's really noticed. And finally, we have Michael in the US, just one poor guy, and he's working also really hard, and it doesn't feel like his voice is heard. So what's going on over here? And this, let me just underline that this is, this is a worldwide, global team, but it can be exactly the same situation in the Netherlands or in Europe with different teams in different countries or different team in different cities. So it could be The Hague, Amsterdam, and Utrecht, for instance, right? What's happening here is that depending on where you are located, you feel or you don't feel that you have the power. You feel that maybe you're working really hard, but I mean, you are not really waiting to do the decisions that are made in the hub or in the headquarters. That you are not heard and seen, that maybe you have, you really have some specificities in your country or in your city or in your team that are not taken into account by, the main location. So you feel like, power is imbalanced. This is your perception. And they are basically three three factors that contribute to make you feel that the power is imbalanced. The number of employees, if there are, just like Sophie in France, if there is a big team, then of course you feel that this location of this team is weighing more. The type of activities on the site. If you have a site where you have all the strategical activities, and an other site where it's just production or I don't know, maintenance, then probably the site with all the strategical activities will be the one weighing more in the decision. And finally, where the leader is located. So these can cause people from different teams feel like, okay, we're not heard, we're not seen, we're not contributing the decisions. What can we do about that? And this is, of course, the most important. Ask ourselves, how can we contribute, to make the emotional connection stronger by rebalancing this perception of power? And there are basically three strategies that we can use. The first one is reinforcing who we are. And this is all about, making sure that there is one strong identity, one strong mission with clear values that everybody feels they all, they are all behind it. They are a part of it. So reinforcing this strong identity. And at the same time, being very aware of, the local differences, the local specificities, take them into account. This is this very subtle balance of having a strong common line, a red line, and at the same time having a sensitivity for the differences. I'll give you just my simple example. As Emmanuel said, I'm also Dale Carnegie trainer. Dale Carnegie is an American training company. And since COVID hits, we have a regular webinar with, all types of content, but mostly like a new type of program that we have delivered online. And these webinars are also an opportunity for us, to remember ourselves, who we are, how we train, what are our USPs, where we are strong. This is one thing. And at the same time, we still have, local meetings where we look critically at our programs and how we adapt them for the local market. So there we have this, this balance of having a strong identity, common identity, and the power of having our voice heard and having a space for our local specificities. This is the first strategy. The second strategy is about what we do. So basically reminding us the common goal, the common purpose, but most importantly, how every team, every location contributes. That we feel that, we're working hard, but we contribute to the results. We contribute to the success. This is your second strategy. And the third one simply is, as a leader, to be there for all your team members, no matter where they are, no matter how important the location is, to be there for all of them. Three strategies to, make sure this emotional connection is strong within your team when it comes to the perception of power. If you look at yourself, as a leader of a global team, which one of those three strategies you think you need to do more of? So probably, maybe you concentrate on the other one, maybe you do a little bit of it, but you feel that this is something that could definitely help, reducing the social distance. Which one of those three in the chat box, please, you think you need to do more of? Saskia, very quick, A. All right. Just let you a little bit of time to think about it. Usually I would, in a training, what I would do is ask the people answering to give us a little bit more details and to elaborate on this, but we don't have the time for that. But it's good to, look at what the others say also is interesting, and also reflect for yourself, of course. Right, I see quite a bit of B's. So what we do actually reinforce it. That's a very important one, because how we contribute, of course, is key. I mean, if you're working really hard and you have the impression that, all the other locations or the other teams are the guys who get all the credits, then of course you get frustrated. So that's a very important one. All right, thank you for that. Let's move on to the second part, the second factors, process and the importance of empathy. And it's about, really making sure that we have space to create mutual understanding, for building relationship, trust, and to getting to know each other more when we are new in the company. So basically, I mean, it goes without saying that empathy is easier to develop when we are together in the office, and that it's much more difficult to build empathy when we are working remote. But let's see what that really means. Let me give you actually you probably already picture that quite well, but let me give you an example I heard last week in a training, and also it was such a great example. With this young woman who has been working she is a recruiter in an engineer company. She has been working for this company for 10 years. I mean, she's doing a great job so far. She was, regularly promoted. She's part of the MT. Everything goes well. But since the COVID hit, her personal situation is kind of tricky. So she explained that during the meeting, that actually during the training, that with her ex, things are not as smooth as they could be. And also the kids are home, no daycare. So from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she has the kids at home where she has to work. And this makes it quite difficult for her to, fully concentrate on her work. She's working really hard, but probably, I mean, she might not be working as efficiently as she was before. And she had 2 weeks ago a meeting with different partners within the companies, and it was half an hour of negative feedback, and she was devastated. She was, after the meeting, she was like, I've never had that before. And most probably what happened there is that, those colleagues, they had no idea about what was going on at home. And they were, because, the nonverbal cues are more difficult, to read, even if we're they probably didn't feel that they were just being so harsh on her. So the empathy wasn't there. And the result was that she was completely devastated. And this probably wouldn't have happened, in a face-to-face situation. So why is that actually? Why is it so difficult to build empathy in a remote context? Basically for two main reasons. The first one is that I guess probably a lot of you are going from meeting to meeting, from to meeting, and most of these meetings are really task focused, business only. We don't have time to create relationship in those meetings. We are really focusing on the task. And as we said, it's difficult, with these small screens to really see how somebody is feeling, what are the needs of this person at the moment, and to really understand what's going on in somebody's head and what are the emotions. So difficult, to really create mutual understanding in this context. So what can we do about that? Basically, Tsedal Neeley is giving us 3 key strategies that we can definitely use. The first one is about, is a very interesting one. It's about integrating feedback on the routine interactions. So it's not feedback on the work that you are delivering or the work you are doing, but about this remote cooperation. How do we work together? Do we need to email less? Do we need to call each other more? Do we need to have more one-on-one? Do we need to recap more? Whatever. How is this remote cooperation working? I had in a training a guy who said, I've been onboarded a year ago and I feel like I just don't get enough feedback on my work. So what he asked his manager was about giving him more feedback. So feedbacking on the interaction, on how we work together remotely, because we don't perceive that really well. So we need to make that explicit. This is the first strategy. The second strategy is about integrating unstructured time. So unstructured time is just that time where you're not talking about work, when you are building this relationship, where you are trying to understand where is the other person at, how does she feel, what is, understanding each other as a creating relationships. So there are many ways to do that. But the fact is that I've run a similar training recently. This is where we are, we are struggling. We are so focused on the task. We have so many meetings that we forget about that one. And for many people, it's really an issue. So it can be from anything to ask somebody, how are you doing at the beginning of the meeting? It can be about having some, in a session, having some fun moments. It can be about having coffee break, can be about social events online. It's key to make sure that we have those moments to really feel how we are doing, who we are, what we need. So let me ask you this one question now. What is it that you do in your team to integrate unstructured time? And maybe now you do it, more or less when you have the time. But what we are talking about now is doing it structurally, making sure that we integrate those moments every week in our process. So question to you in the chat box, what do you do in terms of unstructured time? What do you have already implemented? And here I'm asking because it's really nice to see what the other do. We can give you some great ideas. So in the chat box. Okay, I see Yvette, weekly social coffee break, can talk about anything but work. That's great. Practically speaking, not at all. Weekly coffee mornings, great. So I see there quizzes, walks, that's great. Weekly catch up with the whole team. Whenever we can, we have the space and time to about private life. So great, 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 great to see that you're already doing quite good yoga lessons online. That's really cool. So great ideas. The thing is, I see fantastic that you're all dedicating time for that. The thing is, what I see in meetings is that, at the beginning, people were really like, having great ideas and many creative options. And the longer COVID lasts, the less we dedicate time to it. So it's also about, being persistent and continuing and also feeling a bit, what is it that people need the longer it lasts. Keep looking at the chat box because there are many great ideas coming up. So have a look at what the other do just to also to inspire you. Great. And finally, the last part of this area, what we can do to build the emotional connection. It's also a very interesting one, is to frame meeting as brainstorming opportunities. Because what can happen in this context of remote working is that we are so focused on the task. We are so focusing on achieving our goals and meeting the deadline and everything that we can tend, not necessarily, but can happen that we tend to not take enough time to listen to disagreements, to listen to different perspectives, to hear what other people think and why they don't agree with us. So a very interesting thing to do is to, when you have a new idea, when you have a new concept, instead of delivering it like in a meeting and just ask people, is it a go or not or whatever, is to frame your meeting as a brainstorming. And get people to, to share, to reflect, to think, to exchange ideas on whatever it is, the concept, the project, to have them to contribute to the creation of the whole thing. And it can, it can look like a bit of waste of time in the beginning, but it isn't ultimately, because people have contributed, people have participated, and it also enriches very often the idea of the concept because you have heard so many perspectives. You have heard also maybe some, of course, things that you have not thought about. So it's, and intimately, when people have contributed, they buy in much more easily. So it's a very interesting thing to implement. I have a personal example. I've recently joined an association of trainers. It's actually a Belgian guy who started it two months ago. He found some different, or actually he selected some different trainers in different countries who have all a different expertise, and create a network or an association of trainers. And the idea is that we all go together to a client and that we can say, hey, look, we have all this expertise in our association, so we can deliver a completely customized online program for you. So he approached us, different trainers, different countries, build the relationships with every one of us. But then we didn't know each other, you know, and we are supposed to be a team. So how did he do that? Is that we had a couple of workshops together. The first was only the second strategy, integrate and structure time. So it was all about getting to know each other, building relationship, understanding where we were coming from. And the second workshop was about how are we going to work together? So it was actually a big brainstorming session. And we together created our ways of working. And it was really great because, you know, at the end of 2 hours, we said, okay, this is what we want and this is how we go together. And it was very smart because in the end, if he had, you know, imposed his idea or given his idea, probably some of us would be like, I'm not sure. But now we were all on board after 2 hours. So that was a very effective way to, you know, make sure that we were all understanding each other and all connecting with each other strongly. That was our second area and our strategies on this topic. Hope you're still with me. It's really weird for me to talk that much, but hopefully you're still there. Let's move on. Language and the fluency gap. If you're working with the untouchables, most probably this is one of the interesting topics for you. So how, you know, the fact that some people master language more or less can have also an influence on your team connection, on the social distance. And what Tsedal Neeley says is that the team members who can communicate best in the organization's lingua franca, usually English, but of course in the Netherlands might be Dutch, often exerts the most influence, while those who are less fluent often become inhibited and withdraw. So I'd like you to reflect a minute for yourself. No need to put anything in the chat box, just for you. If there is a fluency gap, and what we call a fluency gap is what we just said, some people speak better than others. If there is a fluency gap in your team, how do you deal with that? What do you do as a leader? Just a minute to reflect on this. Because of course, when we have that, we can miss some crucial insights from people. When that regularly happens, people who have great ideas, who are very knowledgeable, very smart, and because they don't feel at ease with the language, they won't share. And you're missing key, you know, key aspects here, key insights. So what is it that you do? Probably you do something and probably you could have more ideas on this. I don't know, but we have something from Tsedal again, which is really interesting. What she did is that she defined some rules of engagement. And what you see now on the screen, some people even printed it and asked their team members to have it next to their computer. There are tips for, you know, the fluent speakers, the less fluent speakers, and ultimately for us, the team leaders. So we're going to look at this one at the end. The fluent speaker, what we would suggest them is actually, you know, to slow down their pace, to make sure that they are using words that everybody can understand, not, you know, weird idioms that nobody understands, to refrain from dominating the conversation. And this sounds maybe like, you know, an open door, but I see that regularly, especially when people are speaking English really well, and they really enjoy it, and then talk and talk and talk, and I mean, the rest of the team can be just like a bit, shut off. So refraining from dominating and consistently asking if people understand what they are saying, if they see that, okay, there is silent here, so is everybody following? And listening, making sure that you stop talking and that you listen. That would be the tips for the dominant speaker, the fluent speaker, sorry. The less fluent speakers, they also need to make an effort, of course, and for them that would be more, to push themselves out of their comfort zone. Because if you are not fluent, sometimes it really feels like, hey, I really have to do this extra effort. So refraining from, reverting to your native language, especially if you have colleagues who speak like you do French or Spanish, then sometimes really easy, to just forget about Dutch or English and just communicate in your own language. And also asking if people understand you, because sometimes, you have a strong accent or your command of the language is a little bit poor. So make sure that people understand. So ask also if people understand you. And more specifically, if you don't understand something, ask. Don't wait people to ask you, do you understand me? So ask, be proactive and ask. So these would be the tips for the less fluent speaker. And finally, for the team leaders, because we do have a real role to play here, is to make sure that airtime, as we call during the remote meeting, is shared equally. So that means that you may have to shush people who are dominant if you see that somebody is talking and not giving space to the other. You may have to really actively elicit questions from the more quiet speaker to make sure that they contribute and that you hear what they are saying and what they are thinking, maybe. And you need to be, sometimes ready to interpret what has been said, because sometimes it can be unclear. So you really have to make sure that what has been said is clear for everyone. So there is a real role here. And this, language is sometimes something that we underestimate, but it's really crucial to make sure that this is not impacted negatively the emotional connection in your team. All right. Let's move on to the fourth factor or area. And this is, I want to say my baby, but this is my topic, cultural understanding. And here in this case, more specifically, cultural biases and their impact. So the identity and the mismatch of perception. So, because there again, it goes without saying that, or when we are together in the office, it's already sometimes a bit, complex and challenging to understand people from other cultures. But when we are working remote, that's another level of complexity. So of course, there are many aspects where, we have differences and there can be some misunderstanding or some irritation and frustrations. I've selected 4 that are really important when it comes to working with Dutch and internationals that I see coming back regularly. 4 areas where we can have some, misunderstanding, frustration, conflicts. So the first area is about leading. So leading is something what I see very often. So it's quite a complex topic, but we're not going to go in all details. But what very simply said, what I see very often is that, of course, the Dutch culture is more an egalitarian culture. The leader is more somebody who is there to inspire, but is one of the guy, ultimately. He's accessible, he's open to receiving feedback, and he draws, actually, he's supported by these teams of experts, right? So that's one of the guys. From other culture, the expectation that you have from a leader is completely different. He is the boss. He is the one who makes the decision. He is the one who gives the comments and the direction. And you're used to that and you expect that. So what is the misunderstanding here? And especially in meetings or especially in this remote context, is that what I see, and I'm going to give you now a very simple example. Have a sales manager from who is working with Belgian and with Dutch people. The Dutch team is, of course, no problem. Everything is going really well. But this Belgian team, he kept, now we're working on this, of course, but he was just telling them, hey, if you have a problem, come to me. Nobody came to him. So like, that is no problem. And one day he had onboarded a new Belgian guy. And tell him, hey, if there is a problem, come to me. If you have an issue, I'm here to support you. The door is open. After 3 months, they were together in a big meeting with the big bosses from the States. They work for an American company. And in front of the big bosses, the Belgian new hire says, I've been here for 3 months and you let me drown. And he was, the Dutch sales manager was like, what? I've been asking him for 3 months if there was anything he could come to me that was there. But there was a typical misunderstanding of thinking that telling people, I'm here from you, come to me if you have an issue, that people will come to you. Because for many people coming from culture where the boss is the boss, and if he doesn't come to you, you won't come to him, then you have this kind of misunderstanding. So this is just one example. Then we have communication. I think for this one, I'm not going to spend too much time because Emmanuel gave us a great example about feedback. I think it was very clear in the introduction that for many Dutch people, there is not such a thing as negative feedback. Feedback is almost a gift. It's something that helps you to grow, to become better. It starts at school. You do your spreekbeurt and then you give a tip and tops, and it's just a good way to become a better version of yourself. But for other culture, negative direct feedback, is really something that you take personally. So how do we make sure that here we avoid, irritation, frustration, and sometimes conflict? So this is the second area. Trust is also a very important one because we don't build trust the same way depending on where we're coming from. So in some cultures, and the Dutch culture is more in that direction, trust is very much about being reliable, being predictable, being honest and transparent, delivering, being competent. This is what you need to trust someone. In other culture, you need that, but you need more. You need to know the person. You need to develop a relationship. You need to develop a closeness with the person. And if you don't have the two, then you won't be able to trust the person fully. And this I see very much. I give trainings at TNO where they have a lot of international scientists, researchers who come over to the Netherlands to work for TNO. And the people coming from cultures where you build the trust, what we call the emotional trust is important. So the relationship aspect is really important. Those people are really struggling when they have started to work remote because they don't know their colleagues, they barely met their managers, and they're really missing this part of, getting to know each other, to trust each other. So this part is also really important. And then finally, we have the time. So time in the Netherlands is almost, something you can touch. It's really tangible. It's organizing our agenda. You're 5 minutes late, you're really late, right? And in other cultures, it's much more fluid. The relationship is more important than the time. So there again, you can have some great misunderstanding and frustration. And all of this, and these are only 4 aspects of the cultural differences, is definitely reinforced by the fact that we don't work together in the same office. We don't have this time to really build connection and empathy, mutual understanding. So, the possible misunderstanding, miscommunication is really enhanced by this specific remote context. So let's ask ourselves, and here's going to be a little poll again for you. We have described 4 areas. What do you think is, if you look at your team, which dimensions are the most likely to create cultural understanding? So is it about, different perception of leadership? Is it about different communication styles or different ways to create trust or different relation to time? So let me share the, oh, sorry. I couldn't see my mouth anymore. It's there again. So I'm going to share the poll with you. So what do you think? and you can use different options. So I see the answer coming in. That's interesting. Okay. All right. So let's see what we have. What we have now, communication styles are really important. The differences, and yeah, it's not a big surprise, of course, because the Dutch way of communicating is very direct, and that come across sometimes are, you know, too rude or brutal. And the interesting thing I always like to say is that Dutch people consider their communication style as honest and transparent. And the international find it direct, or yeah, direct. You have direct, and you have, you know, transparent and honest. So it's really interesting to see what you put actually behind the communication style. So very important, of course. And leadership is also, I see 25% also an important aspect. So the question is, what do we do about that? Thank you for answering the poll, by the way. What do we do about it? Of course, you can have an intercultural training. That's a very good option because it gives you a platform to discuss those things with your team member. But there are also, you know, some simple steps that as a leader of teams you can take. And I'm pretty sure that you already take a couple of those steps, or maybe all of them. But it's good to, you know, refresh that and have that top of mind. So the very first one is we're working with different cultures in this remote context more than ever. Take a step back, watch and listen what is happening and try to understand. And while doing that, a very difficult thing, postpone our judgments. So not, you know, we have this tendency, and we are wired, our brain is wired that way, to make snap judgment, immediately have opinions. No, let's take a step back. Before we draw a conclusion, before we judge, ask a lot of questions to understand where people are coming from, what is going on in their mind, why are they behaving the way they are behaving, right? And then identify the challenges. So when we, you know, when we manage to see that there are differences, what are those differences really? What are the gaps? Is it about, you know, communication, but is it also something about making decisions? Is it about how we how we communicate? Really understand where are the differences, and try as a leader. It's key now, you know, to adapt to the different people who are in your team. It's not about losing yourself. It's sometimes about, you know, adapting your style, your communication style, to make sure that your message is coming across. So when we talk about feedback, we want feedback to help. We want to give feedback to help people to grow. It's necessary. But if you see that the way you give feedback is just, you know, devastating people or making them angry or making them disengaged, then it might be smart to think, hey, how would this person like to receive feedback? And this is where you can, you know, remember, we can have those interaction or these feedback loop about how we cooperate remotely. So maybe you can ask the person, so what would be a good way to give you feedback, or see how you can monitor and adapt it to make sure that it comes across, but it comes across positively. And finally, yeah, of course, always keep an open mind to different perspectives, because this is what we have when we work in a multicultural environment. Right, so think a minute on these steps. Probably you take many of them, but it might be good, you know, to have that top of mind regularly. And finally, our last, and I see we have to speed up a little bit because time is ticking.
Yes, it's just 10 to 11, Alicia.
So the technology, technology and the challenge, connection challenge. So which tools are suited to the aims and context of the interaction? So basically, it's about what kind of question do we need to ask ourselves before we choose a media, before we choose a platform, we choose a communication channel. Do you ask yourself any questions? Maybe sometimes you do, but maybe sometimes, you're in the, you're in the flow and you just send an email. And really important sometimes, especially when it's an important topic, to take a step back there again and ask yourself, hey, who is my audience first? Who am I talking to? Does the communication need to be delayed or instant? I have this colleague, each time something goes through his mind, he just WhatsApp me. I am in the training. I see WhatsApp. When I receive a WhatsApp for work, for me, it's, it's about, it's urgent. Oh, something is going on. It's urgent. So I'm just like, hey, whereas, and I see it is something could have perfectly been, shared in an email. So this kind of frustration we can perfectly avoid by asking ourselves, hey, is it instant or should be delayed? Something really important, pick up your phone, don't send an email, whereas people receive hundreds of emails a day. Make sure that we connect immediately when it's urgent. And also, when we have a complex topic, I am in this program and this project where we're going to work with different countries. We have to roll out the same training in different countries. Lots of materials need to be adapted. And when it's all started, I received email with, bits and pieces of materials, information. I was like, hey, what's going on? This is the typical type of project where you need to set up a video call using a rich media where you can share a lot of information, a lot of context. You can't start a complex project with an email. So it speaks for itself, but it happens so often. And finally, do we need to reinforce our message? Do we need to be redundant to make sure that the message gets across? To ask ourselves those questions before we choose a media. And finally, different strategies that are pretty simple, but we don't always think about it. Less emails. Of course, do we really need to send an email for everything? No. Document share. Having something like SharePoint is really useful instead of, there again, sending all these emails back and forth, etc. Use visual management, especially when you have non-native speaker. That can be very effective and very useful to support your wordings by graphs or visuals. Don't over communicate and agree no-go times. And this last one is a very important one. As a leader, we really have a role model role. So if you start sending emails or WhatsApp messages or call after 7 or during the weekends, people will feel that they have to do that. So agree to no-go time and show the way. So if you don't want your people to work during the weekends or after 7 or 6 in the afternoon, then show the way and be the role model. So since we are almost running out of time, just would like to ask you the very last question. We have covered the whole framework, structure, process, language, identity, and technology, and how we can actually influence, the emotional connection in our team. So the question now for all of us is, what is the first action based on what we've discussed together we're going to take next week to increase the emotional connection in our team? What is that we're going to do? So please, in the chat box, let's inspire each other and see what is it that we take away basically from what we just discussed, and that we want to start from Monday on, even tomorrow if you like, but you can have a weekend to reflect on it. So please tell us in the chat box, what is it that you're going to start doing? Huh. Thank you, Miriam.
Nice.
The chat that is not directly your question. Great. Yeah, so building on the empathy, yeah. Yeah, I see that in a lot of training that people realize when we are talking about this, that this is a crucial thing to do. I have moments for, connect with each other, really see where we're at.
A lot of nice initiatives.
Yeah, great. If the feelings anything off, do not hesitate to speak up. Make people feel welcome to speak up. Great, and patient when necessary. Exactly. So these combine the empathy and all you say, you know, the fact that the leader needs to be there for all his team members. So that is great. Include more social time and Monday kickoff meeting and for management on this topic. Great. Okay. Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you all very much. We have 5 minutes left. Just would like to, I'm missing my Q&A. Yes, it is. If you have any questions about this, this presentation you would like to ask, any things that you, or your comments you would like to add, just let us know in the chat box.
Well, questions or comments I welcome, of course, and then we will be following this webinar with the presentation. It will be sent to everyone who participated anyway, so you will have all of the elements that Alicia presented to us and all of these little tools. So we'll make sure that you will have it. It may not be today, maybe tomorrow, Monday, but you will get it very soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much all. And just the final slide, this is a little bit of an overview of what I do and more than that. But
actually, we have a question here. I see a question from Yvette. What is your experience with the dominant US culture where EU team, where the European team members struggle?
Yeah, it's all about, you know, creating this, something I see actually pretty much also in the, I'm working with an American company at the moment. It's about creating opportunities to discuss that because there is sometimes not even the awareness of this issue. So it's about having a moment, a platform where you can discuss and where the American participant can, you know, feel the perspective of the others. It all starts with, you know, with self-awareness, and sometimes the awareness is not even there. So this is the starting point, and then you can build on that. Thank you for this question.
I think we are nearly there.
Yeah.
So if there are no more questions, and of course you will have, as you can see, you have the link to Alicia's website. Yeah. So don't hesitate to reach out to her directly with specific questions for your company. And again, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you and discussing this topic today, or at least listening to Alicia's expertise on the topic. It's a very large topic, particularly at the moment. And you know, it looks like you are all doing very good things in that matter. So again, thank you, Alicia, and we'll see you soon for our next webinar.
Yeah,
thank you
all. Thank you very much. And thank you for your participation. Very interactive. Great. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.